All right, all right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Shout out to everyone that is watching on YouTube, X, and Rumble as well. And we are back, guys. It is Sunday, fun day. We don't have too many heavy stories today. I try to keep Sunday a little bit lighter because we're starting off the week. But we do have one. We're going to start with that one because there's some interesting things that are happening right now in the Middle East. So before I bring in our special guest, I do want to go ahead and show you what we are discussing tonight, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and get into it. Tonight, we are discussing there's some weird things going on, ladies and gents. There's some weird things happening. Candace Owens is debunking the so-called new alleged Charlie Kirk video. We're going to get into all of that and what happened here with the Daily Mail. Why Turning Point USA, for whatever reason, saw it important to reach out to the Daily Mail. This is just getting really weird, and they are behaving very strange. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, you'll see that picture of Benjamin Netanyahu there. For those who are not aware, there was a massive explosion in Israel on Saturday. What exactly is going on there? And we'll get into some of the other rumblings that are happening in the Middle East. The UAE has announced that a drone has hit near their nuclear site. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump is heavily attacking Thomas Massie and all the people who decided to show up in Kentucky to campaign for him. That includes Lauren Boebert. We're going to get into the importance of this race and all the money that has been pouring in to try to make Thomas Massie lose his seat. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, this particular issue right now is not about left versus right. If Thomas Massie loses this election, you are going to have another pro-Israel shill in Congress, and this is going to make a big difference. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Sam Seder debate, that Sam Seder debate with Ryan Grimm, where it seems as though, I don't know if he was trying to check Ryan Grimm or something like that, but Ryan Grimm stood firm. I'm going to break that down and tell you why Sam's rhetoric here, in some ways it makes sense, but in other ways it doesn't. And again, I'm trying to tell you guys, with this particular issue, when it comes to Israel, this is not about left versus right. People have to look at the greater good here. Lee Camp is here to join us, ladies and gents. And so it's been a while, so I'm excited to have him back. So let's go ahead and dive in. So much to get into, ladies and gents. Tonight's theme is The Tide is Turning. And I think you're going to see that with many of the stories that we have tonight. So let's go ahead and start off with our special guest. His name is Lee Camp. He's a comedian, and he is also the host of Unredacted Tonight. Let's bring him in. Welcome back, Lee. It's been a minute.
Hey, Sabby. Thanks for having me on. Even in a collapsing empire, you make me smile.
Hey, I'm trying around here. These have been crazy times.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild, man. It's wild. But speaking of collapsing empire, I want to start off with the Middle East, guys. I don't know if everyone is aware, but Donald Trump has made a statement, and he's posting ridiculous things right now on Truth Social. He's made a statement that these strikes with Iran are going to resume. It seems like within the next couple of days. So everyone get ready for that. And I wanted to say that first before I show you this explosion, because I don't know what Israel is doing here, but it seems like they may be practicing for something, and this is not good. So on Saturday, there was a massive explosion in Israel. Now, this was apparently near the Misha Air Base and Israel's reported missile and nuclear storage site. And the residents actually heard the blast. So I want to go ahead and show you guys this first so you can see it for yourself. This is a massive explosion.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
וואי, מה זה?
יש שם בסיס צבאי באמא שלי. יו! מה זה?
Yeah. So, Lee, I want to get your take on this. Israel is claiming that they were practicing, and this is huge. That almost looks like that could have been some type of nuclear weapon, how massive that explosion is. I want to get your take on that.
I mean, I'll just say that, yeah, there's not a lot of information. I'll just say this. I seriously doubt that Israel was, because they're claiming it was some sort of test. They say it was a scheduled test. I think that it was either an accident, which does happen at sites with massive military weaponry, or it was some kind of sabotage that, somebody got in there and was able to blow up some of their munitions. I don't like the test thing, just doesn't hold up to me, because you would know if you were testing that in the middle of the night, you would know it would be a major news story. You would know that towns for miles would be like, what in God's name just happened? And so they would know they'd be dealing with that. Instead, they were like, it was a test. It was a test. My guess is either some kind of incompetence or some kind of sabotage.
Yeah, I want to show you guys what Press TV said about this because they reported on it as well. Massive explosion hits Israeli arms facility. Let's go ahead and get into this here. It says that the Israelis regime Tomar company is a key player in developing rocket and missile systems for the Israeli occupation forces, rushed to issue a statement claiming the detonation was nothing more than a pre-planned test carried out according to plan. The statement was relayed by Khan News, and they attempted to downplay the incident at one of the regime's sensitive military sites. Yet the dramatic videos that are rapidly spreading across social media tell a different story. Footage shows a massive explosion producing a towering mushroom cloud that billowed high into the sky. And of course, as you guys saw in that video, that the residents were like, what the heck is that? So what my point is about this is that, Lee, this just shows you the type of weapon capability that Israel has.
Yeah, and we know they have nuclear weapons. They've had nuclear weapons for decades. It's not even a secret anymore. We've had everything from journalists like Seymour Hersh to whistleblowers revealing that they have nuclear weapons, and they're the only country that has nuclear weapons and denies they have nuclear weapons, and everyone just pretends to go along with, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's just watch the clip of Obama being asked about whether Israel has nuclear weapons, and he says, I'm not gonna, try and guess whether. It's like, man, that they have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we really just have to hope that they don't use them. Although many of the people in the ruling elite in Israel are these kind of end times religious nutbags who basically don't care whether they create some sort of World War III with Iran, because they view that as a good thing, putting them into the Armageddon that they view themselves as pivotal for. Then you have a bunch of Christian evangelicals who believe that getting the Jews to Israel, creating greater Israel, will allow for an end times where the Jews will burn in hell. So, those Christian evangelicals are really supporting the Jews in Israel. But yeah, when you add religious nuttery to the insanity that's already happening with U.S. empire and the attacks on so many countries, it really takes it to a new level.
Yeah. I want to show you guys this as well. This is Larry Johnson. He's been on the show a number of times. I want you guys to hear what Larry Johnson said about this. So he's a former CIA analyst.
Why are they working late on the Sabbath in Israel? Because accidents don't happen if you just got inert material sitting around. So this suggests that Israel was involved with some project trying to create some weapon system that they'd use against Iran, knowing the urgency that the attack's going to be coming soon. Whether it comes Monday or Tuesday. Why are they?
So I didn't even pick up on the Sabbath part until I heard Larry say this.
Yeah. I didn't think about that either. I mean, I guess most people know this, but there are many Jews. I mean, I'm Jewish, but I'm, way Reformed Jewish, but there are many Jews who believe you can't do any kind of work on the Sabbath. So like the elevators, many of the elevators in Israel on the Sabbath will go to every floor, because many Jews believe they can't push the button. So instead, the elevator just goes to every floor. That kind of stuff goes on. But most Jews in Israel are not very religious. So you could have plenty of workers there. The question is, why as a company would you announce that all those workers needed to work on the Sabbath? Does seem kind of odd.
Yeah, it does. And that brings me into Iran right now. Obviously, Iran has shown that they have tremendous support, more so than I think Donald Trump imagined, right? And they do have control over the Strait of Hormuz. So Americans have been complaining. We all see the increase in gas prices. I know I do, but also grocery store prices are increasing. And I don't know if you've seen that, Lee, as well. But people are starting to realize.
I sold an organ this morning to afford my grocery bill.
Yeah, it's high, guys. Like, so everybody's seeing inflation increase, etc. And instead of saying, okay, we need to come to a peaceful end, like the U.S. was wrong to attack Iran, bootlicker Lindsey Graham, I want you to hear what he just said on Meet the Press on Sunday morning.
Top of the list.
So you're calling for strikes on the energy infrastructure, Senator?
I'm calling to hurt this regime. If you do the same old thing, you're going to get the same results. Hurt them more, maybe they'll make a deal if you hurt them enough. But right now, I think they're trying to wait us out. I think they're playing games. And in the words of the president, I think they're crazy. I think he's right.
Senator,
yeah, they're crazy. Dude, We've got economic war on whatever 37 countries. We just kidnapped a sovereign head of state in Venezuela. We're besieging the innocent people of Cuba so that we can hopefully get babies to starve to death. We're bombing Iran. We're funding and arming genocides in Gaza and South Lebanon. Yeah, no, but it's Iran that's crazy. It's totally, dude, what are they doing, man? Why would they do this to the world?
It's absolutely insane. And he's another one that he's a very staunch neocon. Lindsey Graham is.
He's the most bloodthirsty one of all of them.
Yeah, he really is. And to me, it just kind of seems like people are starting to move in a different direction. You're seeing for the first time, and I never thought I would have seen this, Lee. For the first time, there are Republicans who supported Donald Trump that are standing up against Donald Trump. This is one of the main issues is Israel and, of course, this war with Iran, but also now on the economic front. And it's like people like Lindsey Graham, it's like they don't care. And they're not even concerned with the fact that everything is increasing for us price wise. It's not just the gas, you guys. It's like we said, it's the food at the grocery store. Everything else is increasing because we're starting to see just how much oil is used in our everyday lives.
I've been beating this drum on my live streams that there is a war against the American people. It's not just Iran. It's not just Gaza. Yeah, it's not a war of bombs, but we have economic wars going on against many countries around the world. And there is an economic war against the American people. The ruling elite do not give a shit about us. But on top of that, they are feasting on the carcass of the American people. Like it is, they know their actions are just making lives miserable, destroying lives, dumping people into debt across this country. They just the other day, whatever Trump official celebrated on Twitter that they've cut more, millions of people off of food stamps. This was a celebration of what a great job we're doing. We found the poorest people in the country and we cut out much of their ability to afford food. Like that is what's going on. This is not just a war against Iran. This is so many wars by a fading, collapsing empire. And one of those battles is against the American people.
Yeah, it's a war against the working class.
Yeah.
And something else just happened recently in the Middle East as well. And I want you guys to hear the way they talk about this. So the UAE reported on Sunday that they had a drone strike, and this was near a nuclear plant in the UAE. Now, so far, the UAE has not blamed anyone for this strike. And that's important for you to hear because listen to what is said here on Fox News, the way that they frame this.
Yeah, guys, good morning. We do start with some breaking news out of the UAE, where officials say that a drone attack against a nuclear power plant caused a fire at a generator on the outskirts of the facility. This is a significant attack and likely conducted by the Iranian regime. It comes as tension continues to rise across the Middle East as the region waits to see if the war will resume in the days ahead. So far, efforts toward a diplomatic solution with Iran have been unsuccessful, with officials in Tehran unwilling to make the necessary concessions to reach a deal. President Trump spoke on his return flight from China, indicating he didn't like the first sentence of the Iranian response to the U.S. peace proposal.
So, Lee, did you catch that? Did you catch how he said it was likely Iran?
Yeah, well, you mean whether this is a false flag?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite possible it is. I mean, Israel needs to drag as many countries as possible into this war against Iran. That is, Israel is the leader in, like, let's just keep bombing Iran endlessly. And so, yeah, they definitely want to drag more countries into it. But I will say, there have been previous strikes during the initial attack on Iran that were legitimately Iranian strikes on the UAE, because UAE is not just an ally of the U.S., but helping the U.S. and Israel fight Iran, go against Iran. And, I did a segment recently on some great research on how Dubai in UAE is like dead, because it's this, like, Dubai has been sold as this, millionaire's paradise for people that are, it's safe and secure and wonderful, and it's for people running away from other countries. Well, all of a sudden you show that Dubai is not safe. It can be hit by these drones. It can be hit by Iran. And all these millionaires that are running from something, that have multiple passports, they're going back to other countries. And Dubai is just not the millionaires' playground that everyone thought it was, or at least they were selling themselves as.
Yeah, we'll continue on with what Trump says here.
Got it. And if I don't like the first sentence, I just throw it away. What was the first sentence? An unacceptable sentence. Because they fully agreed, no nuclear, and if they have any nuclear of any form, I don't read the rest of it. So 20 years is not enough for you. It's got to be a perfect. No, 20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them is not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real 20 years.
And on Saturday, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group.
So he's basically saying that the proposal that came from Iran, sorry here, Lee. I don't know what happened. There we go. The proposal that came from Iran, he was basically saying that he read the first sentence and then he threw it in the trash.
Yeah, because it does. I mean, the U.S. is behind the eight ball. There's nothing that Iran is willing to give them. I mean, if you read the statements actually coming out of Iran, Iran rightfully believes that they're winning this, that they have the U.S. by the balls. And so why would they, meanwhile, Iran's winning this, and yet the U.S. comes to the table and says, give us everything we want. Give us everything we asked for, not just get rid of nuclear material, but the U.S. wants no Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. They want to control their missiles. Like, it's just insane what the U.S. is coming to the table with. So, of course, it's not going to, like, there is no possible agreement if the U.S. thinks they're going to act like they're winning this. And so, yeah, it makes sense that Iran would be like, yeah, they're not even, not only does the U.S. have nothing to offer, but on top of that, the U.S. has proven that we will begin negotiating and bomb while negotiating, which has happened twice to Iran in the past year. We've been negotiating and then bomb while we've been negotiating. But beyond that, the U.S. has proven we will make a deal and rip it up the following day. We will make a deal, not just with Iran, with the JCPOA, which we ripped, Donald Trump ripped up in his first term. We made a deal with Iran. We ripped it up. But with so many other deals, we will make a deal. We will make a deal on nuclear proliferation. We will make a deal on so many things, rip them up a year later, months later. So negotiating, which is also what China has learned, negotiating with the U.S. is borderline meaningless, at least as things stand now. And China knows that. Iran knows that. So, yeah, these the negotiations are just garbage.
Exactly. And that's why. So if people are wondering, like, why is Donald Trump saying they're going to strike again, or these strikes are going to resume? That's why, because the U.S. isn't getting what they want. But then you guys got to remember, do not forget, they killed all those little girls at that school. Like, our country and Israel, they're responsible for that. And they expect Iran just to turn a blind eye and say, okay, yeah, let's negotiate in good faith. Like, it's appalling. And it's like, the nerve of you.
Yeah, they've committed an endless number of war crimes. Blowing up the school is, one of the most massive and horrific massacres we've seen in decades, outside of Israel's genocide in Gaza. But on top of that, they've blown up Iranian infrastructure. They've gone after hospitals and universities. The U.S. has committed war crime after war crime after war crime. And Iran has asked for like a rather reasonable toll on material and gasoline that goes through the Strait of Hormuz, like $1, $1 a gallon or something like that, or $1 a barrel. I don't remember what it was, but it's not anything insane. But basically to try and rebuild their country, as the U.S. has just blown up infrastructure, blown up bridges, blown up hospitals, and yeah, it's so incredibly repulsive, and it shows it really does show what level the U.S. empire is at, that the level of collapse the U.S. empire is on the brink of. I mean, this isn't very different from the British Empire and really the nail in their coffin, which was the Suez Canal in, I think, 1956. Is that the year? When they, Egypt, couldn't compete with the Britain militarily, but they just sunk a bunch of ships across the canal. Britain couldn't use it, and that was enough to make Britain go crawling to the IMF for loans to prop up their remaining empire. But it really was the end of the British Empire. I mean, it'd been waning for years. But this feels very similar with the U.S.
And speaking of Gaza, because I feel like Gaza has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, guys. So I don't want us to forget about what's happening there, because just recently, this just happened again. Here we go. Saturday night, a lot is happening. Israel did strike Gaza on Saturday night. Now, they're claiming they were targeting a Hamas official. Listen to this here.
All right, you're watching live now. I'm Austin Westfall. Take a look. The IDF sending this out, saying an Israeli airstrike killed the chief of Hamas's military wing in Gaza. This is the most senior Hamas official that Israel has killed in Gaza since October's U.S.-backed ceasefire agreement. The IDF says that Izz al-Din al-Haddad was one of the last senior commanders involved in the planning of the October 7th attack. Let's read a little bit of what the IDF sent out. They say that this is the head of Hamas's military wing, one of the last senior commanders involved in the planning of the October 7th massacre. Following the elimination of Mohammed Sinwar, the IDF says, Haddad assumed his roles and worked to rebuild Hamas's capabilities and planned numerous terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians and IDF troops. Throughout the war, they say Haddad was involved in the holding of many Israeli hostages in Hamas captivity and managed Hamas's hostage captivity system by surrounding himself with hostages in an attempt to prevent his elimination.
So we can't forget about what's happening in Gaza. And I want to get your take on this, Lee, because, again, I just want to remind everybody, there's supposed to be a ceasefire in Gaza. But I don't want people to sleep on that, because Israel's still striking Gaza.
Yeah, and I love how Fox News just reads IDF statements like they're just willing to be the IDF press secretary, which is not just Fox News; it's all of mainstream media. It's repulsive. But yes, Israel is continuing to genocide Gaza. Al Jazeera coverage, you can go look up, shows that Israel has struck Gaza with either bombs or I don't know whether it includes sniper rifles as well, but has struck Gaza in one form or another almost every single day since the October ceasefire. Israel continues to strike Gaza almost every single day. And that's not including the continued genociding via cutting off food. A tiny fraction of the number of trucks, aid trucks that were promised to actually get through into Gaza or allowed through by Israel. So they continue to genocide Gaza with disease and famine and unclean water and all of those things. Also, Israel continues to take more and more land inside Gaza. So they put their yellow line of death in Gaza initially in October, which signified basically if you walk past that line, Israel can and will murder you. And so all the survivors in Gaza went to it was about, I think, 48% of Gaza that was left to Gazans. So they were in 48%. Now Israel has moved those barriers enough that they have now stolen 60% of Gaza has been stolen by Israel. And who's to say they're not going to keep moving it? They are forcing the survivors of this genocide into a smaller and smaller amount of land. And like you say, this is getting almost no coverage. I recently, like a week ago, from one of my Substack articles, did a search on the term Gaza in mainstream media. And, 2-3 pages of Google results. There was 0 articles by mainstream media on Gaza, with the exception of Israel attacking the Gaza aid flotilla 1,000 miles from Israel, because Israel now owns the ocean 1,000 miles from Israel, apparently. I had no idea that they own that. That's amazing. Like right off of Crete. Israel just owns all of the oceans. Anyway, that was the only article, meaning they are not actually, mainstream media is not covering the Gaza genocide almost at all anymore.
No, and that's by design, because they want you guys to believe that it's over, that the killing has stopped. Because we've seen this happen before, where they cover it when it's hot and then they stop talking about it. So you think that everything there is fine, but it's not fine. And notice you don't hear Donald Trump talking about it. Like, the last you heard from Donald Trump was that they were going to build like this Trump resort like in Gaza. And Jared
quietly, his board of peace there's an article, I think Reuters or something. His board of peace is quietly like backing away from their Gaza project, which was supposedly the reason of creating the board of peace. It was that Gaza project. And then, of course, in a larger way, it was meant as something Trump could fund with billionaires to supplant the UN. And Trump made himself president of the Board of Peace forever. So even if he's no longer president of the United States, he'd still be president of a UN replacement. Like, that was the goal. But anyway, even they are abandoning their little Gaza project.
And they're pushing, to your point, they're pushing them into smaller and smaller areas, guys. Like, so we have to remember Gaza was already small as it is, right? It was this small piece of land. And then you had all these people, over 2 million people that were living there. And the way that Max Blumenthal kind of described it when he went to Gaza, he said Gaza was basically like a ghetto. And so imagine them pushing all those people into smaller and smaller area. It's so obvious. And this is absolutely insane. But to Lee's point, people, they're not talking about this. They stopped talking about it. So you think that nothing is happening anymore.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind, out of media, out of mind. It's so very true. People care a lot less. I have contacts living in Gaza, survivors living in Gaza, that say that, they used to hear from a certain number of people. They used to get a certain amount of donations of people trying to help them. And it's all dried up. It's all gone, because when it's not in the media, it must not be happening anymore, right? People in Gaza must be fine. When in fact, they continue to starve to death. They continue to die from disease, which is by design by Israel. They continue to get bombed and shot. Israel has murdered directly, I think, like 800 since the ceasefire. But most deaths now in Gaza are what are called indirect deaths, which is they don't need to bomb. They just starve them and murder them with disease. And the estimates, Francesca Albanese from the UN and others, the estimates of how many Gazans have been murdered since the beginning of this genocide after October 7th, somewhere between 500,000 and 680,000. So that number of like 77,000 or whatever that you get from the Gazan Health Ministry, those are people directly murdered by a bomb or something. It's not counting those lost under rubble. It's not counting those die from disease. It's not counting those who die from medical problems because there is no medical care and every hospital's been bombed. It's not counting those who starved to death. So when you count all of those, you're talking hundreds of thousands. Easily half are women and children, and a huge percentage of that is children, just babies and tiny kids.
Yeah, and I want to show people this as well. Solomon, if you follow him on X, he's really good about tracking the planes. 11 U.S. Air Force C-17A aircraft are now leaving the Middle East toward Europe. Now, let's all remember, we saw this happen before, and he's correct. The same pattern happened before February 28th and last week, just before Trump canceled the strikes at the last minute on Saturday. So if you guys go to, it's called Flight Radar. If you go to Flight Radar 24, you can actually see the plane movement that's happening in that area. I also just saw that American Airlines is apparently canceling flights right now. So we're seeing similar patterns to what happened before the U.S. and Israel struck Iran. So everybody just pay attention to what's happening, because it's concerning, but they're moving in that direction of, again, just starting more strikes and prolonging this war. And I got to ask you a question about this, Lee. Do you think that, because, my mind goes there sometimes. I feel like they want, by they, I mean the elites, I feel like they want a global catastrophe. I feel like they want an economic collapse. What's your take on that?
You're saying global elites do, or the U.S. elites, or what do you mean?
Just elite, like the billionaire class in general.
I mean, so whenever there's some sort of collapse or close to collapse, such as right after the COVID lockdowns or the 2008 financial collapse, the richest of the rich make crazy amounts of money. So you're very right in that regard, where they view a kind of temporary collapse as a great thing. I mean, $4.5 trillion was funneled into Wall Street during COVID. Unbelievable amounts of money. We increased the monetary supply by 20% just during COVID in the U.S. So yeah, they benefit from catastrophe. It's called shock doctrine. It's useful for them in so many ways. However, the U.S. ruling elite do not want a collapse of the U.S. dollar. Because that would greatly harm their money as well. And so, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious once you start digging into these things that one of the biggest reasons for the attacks on Iran are to protect the petrodollar, to protect the U.S. dollar has so much power, and we can print 20% more and not have it lose all its value because the petrodollar, and because it's a petrodollar, it's a global reserve currency. So those two things are what prop up the U.S. dollar. And once those disappear, which the petrodollar is fading, once those disappear, the U.S. collapses pretty quickly because of our crazy debt and the trillions we print. So going after countries that have a lot of oil and the ability to pump that oil outside of the U.S. dollar is one of the biggest goals of the U.S. empire. And what were or are those countries that have a lot of oil and can pump it outside the U.S. dollar? Iran, Venezuela, Russia, used to be Iraq, Syria, Libya. Those are the ones on the list. And sure enough, we've succeeded in knocking them all down. Russia, we've largely failed. And Iran, so far, we've failed. These are also where China gets a lot of their energy. So that's an added reason to collapse these places, take control of them, put in puppet governments, etc.
Well said there, Lee. Lee, I do want you to tell people about your show, Unredacted. I know you've been hitting some issues with YouTube. I've talked about it before on this channel, how people have to deal with the algorithm. But for those who are not aware, Lee is one of the hosts that came from RT. So there were a number of people that had shows on RT, like Abby Martin had a show, Chris Hedges had a show, Lee, Jesse, I always forget, Jesse Ventura
Yep.
had a show, and Tyler Ventura had a show on, and those shows were really good. If you guys ever saw them, when the war with Russia with Ukraine started, there was this decision that was made that RT, like, that was going to be banned. So all of them lost their shows, like Lee and Abby and all of them. But they were able to, have a show like on YouTube. But tell everybody what's been going on, because I think people need to hear about this.
Yeah, I mean, Abby left years before that, but yeah, it's, for people that don't know anything about this, I had a weekly comedy show. People called it an actual left-wing Daily Show as opposed to what the Daily Show is, and it, was relatively successful. After Bernie Sanders nearly won the presidency, the Justice Department shut down a lot of the reach, a lot of the ability of RT to be seen. A lot of the outlets that covered or carried RT were stopped carrying it. And so the reach decreased epically after 2016. However, that was apparently not enough. So in 2022, the U.S. sanctions crushed the network, and I lost my TV show. Now, that's one thing. Okay, you lose your TV show. But in that same week, my YouTube, with 250,000 subscribers, was banned around the world. My podcast on Spotify, which was not an RT entity, was banned around the world. Later, a couple of years later, my TikTok was banned without a reason or right to appeal. I've been shadow banned on Facebook, shadow banned on Twitter, etc. I then, a year ago, tried to recreate Redacted Tonight completely independently, just funded it myself, did all the writing myself, etc. And I basically, for a while, we were allowed to grow legitimately. We were allowed to do what a YouTube channel does, which is like slowly gain subscribers and grow and grow. And then after like 4 months, they just shut it down. And there was not just zero growth, but it was like a fraction of people would actually see that we even had a new episode. And so just a couple of weeks ago, I decided I basically can't fund and put the time and effort into creating that weekly show without any type of growth. So I had to cancel Unredacted. Unfortunately, that was a couple of weeks ago. I still do my live streams. They're very suppressed, but I still have live streams regularly at youtube.com/momentofclarity. I also have a Substack. I write columns, like 3 to 4 columns a week on various news issues. One of my biggest ones has been the truth about October 7th that people still don't know. And that's at realleecamp.substack.com. So I'm basically building those two things. I still have live streams 3 days a week. But yeah, Unredacted. I couldn't keep going.
Yeah, guys, make sure you support Lee. I know a number of people that has run into this issue. I remember at one point, Rachel Blevins. You familiar with Rachel?
Yeah,
okay,
I knew her at RT, and then I've interviewed her multiple times.
Yeah, just I think this was last year. Rachel and Glenn Deason, all of a sudden one day they woke up and their channels were gone. And the only thing, and Mark Sloboda, and the only thing I realized they all had in common was that they all had worked for RT. Now, they were able to get their channels back, but the reality is when that happens, it's like you're hit with a lot of suppression and it's hard to regrow. I think Lisa has a good question here for you, Lee. Why is he not suing the companies? Could you explain like how?
I mean, I don't know that there would be any success in that. I mean, for one thing, that type of thing is rather expensive, but they just say, they're private companies. They can do what they want. That I feel like that's kind of the beginning of the end of it. I don't know anyone who's been successful at suing them maybe in some sort of similar situation. I could be wrong. I don't see that as a path forward.
Yeah, I will say for those who are not aware, we're all basically contractors. Like those of us that have shows on YouTube, we're basically just a contractor. And they can decide at any time if they like, okay, well, we're going to get rid of your channel or that channel or whatever. So it is important that you guys like follow Lee, follow him on Substack, support his work because he does great work. And I hate it when, and we all have been through this, unless you were propped up by, someone with a big name from the get-go and you had that backing. all of us have dealt with the suppression. All of us have dealt with, but I have noticed, and others have pointed it out to me, that your channel in particular has been heavily suppressed. So please, guys, make sure you go and support Lee. Anything else you want to add, Lee?
Yeah, just on that note, like there is, you know, someone who hates me would go, well, you're just not getting a lot of views because you suck, man. That's the problem. But the truth is, you can look at the analytics. Like, you can see that for 3 months, Unredacted Tonight was allowed to basically be seen by subscribers and things like that. And then you can look at the analytics and see that suddenly the people viewing it, you know, don't come from YouTube sending out alerts. I have everybody who's in my chat will tell me they got no alert about my show. So you can know that it's not a just, oh, you just happen to suck. Like, you can very much tell that it's a concerted effort. There's some algorithmic stuff, like talking about Israel's not good for the algorithm, but you can tell with me that it's something beyond just algorithmic. So yeah, I'd love for people to follow me at reallycamp.substack.com or to click subscribe at youtube.com/moment of clarity. You know, even though, again, you might not get the notifications, but still worth a try.
And thank you for telling people that about the Israel videos, because a lot of times I've seen people say, oh, you guys are only talking about Israel because you're trying to make money. Yeah, most of the Israel videos are demonetized.
Yeah,
so we know that. Like, we don't go out and tell you guys that, but we know that because we see it on our end.
Yeah, and other people that actually are in YouTube's good graces, not like me, they will get a great number of views on videos, and then they'll get a fraction of that on an Israel video. So, you know, other types of creators can see the difference between when they talk about Israel and when they don't.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Lee, thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Please go follow Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabby.
Bye. All right, ladies and gents, that was Lee Camp again. Go follow his show. It's called Unredacted. It's cool. Like, if you've watched like The Daily Show, he's right. It is kind of like that, but telling you more truth, right? You know what I mean? So check Lee out. He does great work. The tide is turning. That is tonight's theme. The tide is turning. And I think you're going to see that with these other stories tonight, ladies and gents. If you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid, ladies and gents, and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to our patrons. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate you, fam. And if you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. The ultimate Sabinators. There's Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys. They're also Sabbies, and they are not too shabby, I've heard. That's what I've been told. And last but not least, we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Ladies and gents, thank you. Thank you so much. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and keep this show moving and grooving, shall we? Shall we? Let's go to some of the super chats here. Thank you, RM. I don't see your Rumble feed, Sabby. I don't know what is going on with Rumble. This happens sometimes where, like, I connected, but it doesn't. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'll be able to upload it to Rumble after this. But thank you for letting me know. Shout out to Mark Mitchell, who just became a Sabby member. Let's give Mark a big whoop, whoop. Thank you, Miriam. Sab, please talk about the horrible news that Israel was planning on killing all 10,000 Palestinians they have incarcerated in their torture prison by hanging them, and they have 90 days to kill them all. I'm actually going to cover that on Tuesday, hopefully with Max Blumenthal. I think that's what Max said, either Tuesday or Thursday, one of those days. I'll let you know, though. Thank you, Measured Man. I listened to one of the evangelists that said that America must come to its needs in order for the prophecy, because America is not in the Bible at the end times. This is all insane. It's a lot. I told you guys, that's why they're letting this country fall apart. Like, this is crazy. Thank you. Humongous says, you look beautiful, Sabs. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Deep Green. In New York, I hope the union succeeds in getting what they deserve from the Long Island Railroad strike economically. Shame on Hochul for going after the union and workers for unreasonable wants for the workers. Yeah, I was going to talk about that today because I got to connect it to the mafia union story. But something else, I saw something else and I was like, okay, I'm not ready to discuss that just yet because I got to go through some more research. So hopefully I'll be able to discuss that on Tuesday night, along with the mafia unions. All right. Eric is on vacation, Mr. Moto, but he'll be back Tuesday. Shout out to George Powell for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give George a big whoop whoop. And thank you, Sunshine. The evil elites are destroying the planet. Yes. Yes. Somebody gets it. That's what's happening, folks. All right. Let's move on to the next story. The tide is turning. The tide is turning. Right now, Donald Trump is throwing everything that he can at Thomas Massie. Now, his election takes place on Tuesday. He is not just attacking Thomas Massie, also doing so with apparently Pete Hegseth, who is set to make way in Kentucky to campaign for Thomas Massie's challenger, Ed Gallery. We'll call him Ed the Fed. But he's attacking everybody that has come out to fight for and help Thomas Massie. I want to show you what he just said recently. Karen Ann says, dumbass Trump doesn't know Colorado primary qualification deadline for Republicans is over. So he's going after Lauren Boebert here, who is there campaigning for Thomas Massie. Is anyone interested in running against weak-minded Lauren Boebert in Colorado's 4th Congressional District? You remember Lauren moved to the district when it became obvious that she couldn't win in her original congressional district, the 3rd. A carpetbagger, indeed. Boebert is campaigning for the worst Republican congressman in the history of our country, Thomas Massie of the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. And anybody who can be that dumb deserves a good primary fight. Even though I long ago endorsed Boebert, if the right person came along, it would be my honor to withdraw that endorsement and endorse a good and proper alternative. Just let me know or announce your candidacy, and I will be there for you. Logically says, who the hell still uses carpetbagger? Exactly. So let me come in and say something here. The fact that the president of the United States is not only attacking a sitting Congress member, but they are actively asking other people to come out and run against her and that they'll back them. I don't understand how we don't have any type of rules against this. This is absolutely ridiculous. And it's very clear what Donald Trump is doing here. He's coming after Lauren Boebert because she's supporting Thomas Massie, but also because she supported the release for the Epstein files. Never forget that they forced the vote for that because Mike Johnson did not want to bring that vote to the floor. So because she basically went against Donald Trump, he wants to come after her now. She responds here and she says, yes, I saw the president's post. No, I'm not mad or offended. I knew the risk when I agreed to stand by my friend Thomas Massie. I was and will be America first, America always, and MAGA onward. We actually have a clip of Lauren here, and she's talking about these billionaires that put money into Thomas Massie's challenger.
This race will determine the future of all other races. You all understand the millions of dollars that have been poured in by billionaires, even a billionaire that's in the Epstein files. And on Tuesday, you have got to send a clear message that Kentucky is not for sale.
So I thought it was pretty interesting there that there is actually a billionaire who's in the Epstein files that is donated to Ed the Fed. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I'm going to say this right now, and everybody needs to listen up. This particular race is important, and I'm going to tell you why. This race is not just about Thomas Massie. This race is The Epstein class or everybody else? If Thomas Massie loses this race, it's a win for the Epstein class. It's a win for the military industrial complex. It is a win for Israel. This is really important, guys. I have never seen this much money poured into a race to beat the sitting Congress member. And I've seen money come in. I saw them put a lot of money up against Nina Turner, but she wasn't a sitting Congress member at that time. I've seen them put up a lot of money against Jamal Bowman, against Cori Bush. But right now, the numbers are showing this one is the biggest one. That's how much money that they've put in this race. Absolutely ridiculous. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. And there should be rules against it. So at this point in time, I don't care. I don't care if Thomas Massie is a Republican. That's the point aside. I think he's actually libertarian, but he caucuses with the Republican Party. That's not what this is about. This is about whether or not the Epstein class is going to win or we are all going to lose. Now, I want to show you some of these other efforts that are coming through. So Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed it out here. There were only four Republicans that signed the discharge petition to force the vote to release the Epstein files. Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and myself. Trump has come after us one by one ever since then. The president told Speaker Johnson not to allow the vote to happen, but we courageously went against the president and refused to budge, overrode the speaker to force the vote for the record. This is one of the things I do give them credit for, right? Because force the vote actually comes from the DSA handbook. It comes from the Democratic Socialists of America handbook. And this is something that the squad members were supposed to do in Congress when they got a narrow majority. The squad chose not to do that. We've heard many stories about that since then. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. We'll be here all day. But they chose not to do it. And you had Republican politicians who saw that not happen, but then they used force the vote. They used it. And not just for their needs, for all of us. The Epstein files, this impacts everybody. I think we would all be surprised to know how many people have been trafficked, or their kids have been trafficked, or they know someone who has been trafficked. I think we would all be surprised. It was only when all members of Congress had to vote on record did Republicans finally find their intestinal fortitude to do the right thing and vote yes to release the files. This is what it's about. That's who he's coming after. Ro Khanna is supporting Thomas Massie. Ro Khanna is a Democrat. Thomas Massie is a man of character. He's the type of congressman our founders envision. I hope his constituents will see the courage, independence, and sincere love of country he brings to the job. Now, I can already tell you, I already know that there are some Democrats that are not happy that Ro Khanna decided to work alongside Thomas Massie, or they're not happy that Ro Khanna decided to even put out this statement for Thomas Massie. And this is where people have to put partisan politics aside. For years, I have watched Congress members do bipartisanship to pass legislation for war, to pass legislation to kill people abroad, to pass legislation to send American troops overseas to die, all to launder money back and forth to the military industrial complex, and so that these billionaires can get richer. But the moment that a few decided to do bipartisanship to release the Epstein files, all of a sudden, this is a problem. It's a problem to the donor class because they're part of it. It's a problem to the billionaires because they're part of it. That's what this is about. This isn't about whether or not you like Thomas Massie. This is about whether or not you despise the donor class. We go on more here. This is the craziest shit that I've seen all day. The U.S. Secretary of War is being deployed to Kentucky to campaign against Thomas Massie. That's wild. You know what? It is wild, and I'm going to tell you why. Pete Hegseth is going to campaign for Ed the Fed, for Ed Galerian. Now, Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense. Somebody's going to have to look this up for me because I don't know. There is the Hatch Act. How is Pete Hegseth allowed to go campaign for Ed the Fed? I thought that under the Hatch Act, if you're a federal employee, especially one who's, over defense, I thought you couldn't do that. So if I'm missing something, please let me know. If I'm getting that incorrect, let me know. Email me. I'm willing to listen. But that was my understanding. I thought the Hatch Act forbids that from happening. There's some type of special consideration for Pete? These are the things I'm talking about, guys, that people just do whatever they want. Thomas Massie dropped a bombshell here about Kash Patel. By the way, there are a number of influencers that went to Kentucky to help Thomas Massie win this race. And James Lee was one of them. So listen to what he says here to them.
And I'll tell you, I think Kash Patel has to go before that can happen, because he testified to me in the House and the Judiciary Committee and also in the Senate. He and Melania disagree on this, by the way. He says Epstein acted alone. And then recently, Melania walks up to a podium and says, Epstein did not act alone. So she disagrees with the president's FBI director. But in order for the FBI director to investigate or prosecute, he has to perjure himself. So I think they need another FBI director before we're going to get to the bottom of this.
What do you think happened with Kash Patel? Because, I voted for Trump. I was so excited for all of the promises he made. Which is why we're here from California, me personally, because I feel like you actually act on all of the things that Trump ran on. And I really appreciate that. I just want to say that. But I was like, oh, we need Kash Patel. He wants to, minimize the FBI and do all these things. What the hell has gone on there? What has happened with that?
Well, the deep state is real.
It is.
Okay.
And do you mean the deep state, like specifically the realness comes as there people blackmailing these guys, or are they doing?
It's easier than that.
Okay.
It's easier.
You hear that part? It's easier than the blackmail. So remember how we all were saying these people are blackmailed? He's saying, no, it's easier than that.
I don't think Kash Patel's been blackmailed.
You don't think he's like his girlfriend is a honeypot, is what you're saying?
That part is kind of funny. But James Lee is one of the influencers that went there to help Thomas Massie win this race. There was a woman named Tiffany. She put out a call on X and said she's going to do everything that she can to help him win this race. And she told all these influencers, she said, come down. It's us versus the billionaires and the Epstein class. So there are a number of people that are there to try to help him. And Thomas Massie was just on ABC this week talking to George Stephanopoulos. And I want you to hear what he said about them coming after him.
Well, the congressman just said there would be. I guess we'll find out if there is. Meantime, you're facing a primary on Tuesday. In the wake of Senator Bill Cassidy's loss in the primaries yesterday in Louisiana, the president has been up posting on Truth Social throughout the night and into the morning about you. Just a few minutes ago, he posted this. I want to show our viewers right now. Bad Congressman Tom Massie voted against tax cuts, the border wall, our military enforcement. Actually, he voted against almost everything that is good. The worst congressman in history. Kentucky, vote the bum out on Tuesday. We can't live with this troublemaker for another 2 years. He's a true negative force. Your response?
Well, I think that's going to help my fundraising at thomasmassie.com. Every time he tweets about me, it's good for, some money coming in, because people don't like that. And, how did this race become the most expensive race in the history of Congress for a primary? It's because 3 billionaires from outside of Kentucky have funneled millions of dollars in here. They're trying to buy a seat. And so it's not just the president's tweets. I could sustain those without a problem. It's because Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer have dumped money in here. In fact, Miriam Adelson has given so much money to my opponent that instead of paying for the ballroom, they're going to need taxpayer money for the ballroom now.
Well, you've actually.
Yeah, there it is. Everybody heard it, right? Miriam Adelson. These are the people that are donating money to Ed the Fed to try to get Thomas Massie out of Congress. All right. We have another part here. Want to go ahead and bring in this clip as well.
Fair money for the ballroom now.
Well, you see, and you've actually said this week that your vote is a referendum on whether Israel gets to buy seats in Congress. What did you mean by that?
Well, the RJC, AIPAC, and Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer, they're all part of the Israeli lobby, and that's where all the money comes from. And it will be a referendum on foreign policy, whether Israel gets to dictate that by, bullying members of Congress. And I'm the one they haven't been able to bully, so they're putting all the brunt and the force on me. But you can tell that I'm ahead in the polls and they're desperate. That's why they're sending the Secretary of War to my district tomorrow. That's why the president's losing sleep and tweeting about this. That's why AIPAC has dumped another $3 million into my race this weekend. It's because they're panicked and they really haven't been able to gain a lead in this race.
You say the president is desperate, but he's got a pretty good record of defeating people he wants to target in Republican primaries. We saw Bill Cassidy yesterday. We saw what happened in Indiana. How are you going to be able to overcome the president's opposition?
Well, I have the endorsement of the Right to Life organizations, the gun organizations. I had 4 members of Congress come here yesterday and campaign with me. So my situation is a little bit different. Plus, I've had millions of dollars come in from the grassroots, tens of thousands of donors to my website, thomasmassie.com. And it's still coming in, and that's how we're going to beat them.
Yeah, a lot of people have been donating. Again, I've been seeing a lot of this take place online there. But Thomas Massie is correct. They're scared because his votes have actually held up legislation. That's the difference. And that's the thing. Thomas Massie is not a registered independent in Congress, right? So like Bernie's an independent. Angus King is an independent. But he has been able to hold up legislation because of his vote. They know that Thomas Massie doesn't want to vote for the wars. They know he doesn't want to vote to send money to Israel. Thomas Massie also voted against, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but he also voted against the U.S. government being able to have the ability to control our fucking cars. So for all the people, this is why I say sometimes you have to put the partisan shit aside. Pardon my language. But it frustrates me because this should be about principle. This should be about the issues. This should be about policy. Do I agree with Thomas Massie on everything? No. We probably disagree on most. But I am there to say, rah, rah, for those who actually fight. Not for those who just sit back and make money. Not for those who just say, oh, I'm just going to be here forever and I'm just going to make money off of these speaking engagements. Insider trading, all of that stuff. When you get out there and you fight for the people show up. That's why all those influencers went there to Kentucky to help Thomas Massie. Because he fought, because he put his career on the line. Now, some people will probably tell you, well, he didn't actually put his career. No, he did. He did. That's why all this money is against him. That's why. He didn't have to do that. It would have been easier for him just to go along with Trump like all the other puppets. All the other puppets. But he was willing to risk that. That's what I want in Congress. I want fighters. I don't want someone who's going to say, oh, but I got to bend the knee to Mike Johnson. I got to bend the knee to Hakeem Jeffries because I don't want a challenger and I just want to keep my seat and I want a political career. I don't want that. I want a fighter. And we need more of them. Here is Matt Gaetz here, who also showed up to talk to Thomas Massie. Listen to what is said here.
You've heard the question. Is it going to be Marco Rubio? Is it going to be J.D. Vance? Who is the future, or what's the future of the Republican Party?
Thomas Massie is the future.
Yeah.
Everybody hear that? Someone in the crowd said that Thomas Massie is the future of the Republican Party.
So Matt Gaetz shows up to interview Thomas Massie, and it was a hell of an interview. Y'all got to see this.
You often are the lone vote on major issues that are before the country, but we are seeing this groundswell of young people for you here in the district and around America. What, beyond just this race, what do you think that says about the future of the Republican Party and the ideology and the positions that will be reflected by the future of the party?
Well, the reason we've got the young voters is they're better informed. They're watching podcasts, they're doing their own research, they're on the internet. They know when something's AI and when something's real. Okay.
Yep.
So they're better informed. I've got great hope for this country because we've got the young vote, and those are the future of the party. Matt,
and he's right. Let's go to those numbers because I just want to show you guys. Guys, it's not even close. If you look at the results by age group, Thomas Massie has the youth vote. Look at this. The voters under 55 are Team Massie. The voters over 55 are Team Ed the Fed. Now, this is important. And I know a lot of people will see this and they'll say, well, the younger voters, they don't show up. They don't come out to vote or whatever. Well, hopefully that's not the case for him. That wasn't the case for Obama. Young people greatly showed up to vote for Obama, right? So the young people are the future. So if the youth is with Thomas Massie, then that is the future of the Republican Party. Everybody paying attention? The young people, if the young people in the Democratic Party are with Zoran Mandami, that will be the future of the Democratic Party because the older voters won't always be here. All of us are going to die at some point. They're not always going to be around. So that is the future. And I think that's why a lot of the elites and all that stuff, this is why they want to put in the big money and stop. They don't want change. They like things just the way they are. Now, you know what I would really like to see? I would like to see all these people, Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of them. I would like to see them actually start some type of project where they try to get a slate of independents in Congress. Now, some of you may say, well, Sabs, why not start a third party? They can do that, but the reality is starting a third party is going to take time to get enough like ballot access. Anybody who's part of third party will tell you this. The Green Party has a lot of access and they didn't get that ballot access overnight. It's going to take years. In the meantime, you can get those independents in. We've seen independents get into Congress and it's not as difficult for them. Like Dan Osborne right now, he almost won. He's running again. He has a stronger message this time. So maybe he could do it, right? So the young people are the future. The tide is turning, and that's what they don't like. So I told you guys that James Lee is also there. So I want to show you what James Lee said here.
Congressman Thomas Massie, the guy who spearheaded the effort to release the Epstein files, expose pedos, and also says no to the war in Iran. Right on cue, the Israeli lobby is spending $30 million to remove him from.
You guys see that? Largest in history, $30 million. That's how bad they want Thomas Massie gone.
Congress. 95% of the money, I think, pouring into your primary in Northern Kentucky, you said it was coming from
Israeli
lobby.
Yeah.
And so what's their beef with you? I mean, you voted against the Epstein files. Is there a connection there? You think Epstein, Israel, is that why they're after you?
When you get to the billionaire class, a lot of those people are just friends. They go to dinner parties together, and their first priority is Israel. Miriam Adelson is a dual citizen, born in Israel before it was Israel, if you will, as a state. But
she was born in Palestine.
Yeah. So she's Palestinian, I guess.
Yeah, she's Palestinian.
The other side's funded by Palestinians.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's got millions of dollars, and she's giving it to causes like the ballroom. And the sad thing is he's influencing foreign policy by buying the columns and the gold trim for the ballroom.
Right. And I think that's why I'm here, is because it seems like this is the race to determine the future of American democracy.
Yeah. So they're trying to stop him for a reason, because they see him as a threat. If you're not a threat, they don't throw $30 million in a race to someone that they don't see as a threat. It's disgusting. This is why I've been saying for a long time, the big money has to get out of electoral politics. And while people may be sitting back now and they may say, oh, well, he's on the Republican side, so I don't care. They're going to come for your side too. They're going to come, and they have already come for your side, right? Someone mentioned it just recently in the chat. Stephanie said, why did not the Republicans vote for and fight for Jamal Bowman? That was also before October 7th. It's a good question. But like I said, a lot has changed since October 7th. If I remember correctly. When was Jamal? I believe that was before October 7th. But a lot has changed since then, right? So we'll have to see what else happens. Ed the Fed apparently isn't even around. While all those people are helping campaign for Thomas Massie, Ed the Fed is nowhere to be found.
No, we're going to put in this guy who I believe is running some kind of Joe Biden campaign. I haven't seen him.
Right. He's turned down. By the way,
I don't even know if he's real or not.
James, I'm not sure either.
Have you seen him in person? Have you met this guy? Can we confirm that he's real?
I've seen a body.
Yeah.
The president says it's a warm body from Central Casting.
Yeah.
Like, that should give you pause right there.
Right.
That's the nicest thing the president can say about it.
So that guy's like a ghost candidate. It was after October 7th. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder how things would have been if that would have happened today. You know what I mean? Because didn't Jamal Bowman lose under the Biden administration? Yeah. So I wonder how that would have went if it happened under the Trump administration. I don't know. It seems like it's Donald Trump's administration where people are wanting to fight back more. That's what it seems like to me. Now, we'll get into this piece here as well, because I want to bring up a point. This is not a democracy. This guy has over $15 million that has been donated to him by the pro-Israel lobby. This is not a democracy. This is what people are faced with. We have a problem. None of this should be legal. And it's happened to a number. They did it to Jamal Bowman. They didn't do 30 million because it's this 15 plus more. They didn't do it to Jamal Bowman. They did it to Jamal Bowman, not 30 million, but they did it to Corey Bush with the guy that looks like Norbit, Wesley. That guy, easy sellout. That guy's such a fucking sellout. They'll do it to anybody who doesn't bend the knee. Now, they tried to put up money against like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, but the people in their districts are like, nah. Ilhan had a close race one time, but Rashida Tlaib rides with her district, and they're not falling for that bullshit. But there is a tide that is turning. Listen to this caller that calls in. This is C-SPAN. Listen to this.
Hard for me to say this, but I think if I can open up about it in public, that it might help others. I wanted to believe Trump was the real deal for a long time, even though I had doubts because I knew enough about his business history to think otherwise. But now I regret my support for him, and I should have known better. He's making it plain as day. He's a con man, a liar, doesn't keep his promises. He's in office all for himself, and he doesn't even try to hide his corruption anymore. So unless you get all your information from what I call the right-wing propaganda for profit, disinformation media industrial complex. He's the worst president we've ever had, and he's the most corrupt president we've ever had. I know it's hard. It took me a while to be able to say that. Very difficult when you commit yourself to believing in somebody. But
Thomas, if you don't mind me interjecting, did you vote for Trump all 3 times in 2016, 2020, 2024?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Say that again, please.
Did you vote for President Trump all 3 times that he's run?
Yes. I wanted to vote. I considered a third party, and I considered even a Democrat, but I did in the end.
You hear that? So, and there are a number of them. There are a number of people that voted for Donald Trump 3 times and now regret it. There is a tide that is turning. This one's really interesting. I actually couldn't believe this one, so I had to double check it. But at the end of the day, this is all going to come down to money. All going to come down to money. So Brian, what's his name? Brian Allen. Let's go to Brian Allen because I want to show you guys what he just shared. And I had to double check this because I was like, let me double check that. Brian Allen, journalist. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. Guess what just happened in Pennsylvania? The Pennsylvania House passed a bill to remove the state's same-sex marriage ban from the books, and 26 Republicans crossed party lines to vote for it. You see this? 26. Not 1, 26. Something is changing. Something is happening. Now, do I believe that the majority of Trump supporters are against Trump? No, I don't. But you don't need the majority. You honestly need a couple of loud voices or people who have actually done things, people who are impactful. And the Epstein files thing with Ro Khanna and all of them, again, they did not have to do that. It would have been easier on their careers if they didn't. But they said, no, I promised I would, so we're going to do the right thing. Thomas Massie didn't have to do that. Ro Khanna didn't have to do that. He's getting shit on people from both sides, by the way. Ro Khanna's getting attacked by Republicans and Democrats for doing the right thing. Because people are in their partisan bubbles. So my hope, and I hope what people learn from all of this, is that I sincerely hope that if Thomas Massie wins, there is some type of shift where more people in the Republican Party say, okay, well, Thomas Massie won. I'm going to say what I really feel about Trump. I'm going to push back because I'm going to tell you a little secret. You can't tell me that every single one of the Republicans that were kind of quiet about the Epstein thing, you can't tell me they all think it was the right thing to do. They were quiet because they didn't want a primary challenger. They didn't want to lose their seat. Similar to when Biden was in office and all the Democrats that wouldn't say anything about the genocide or continue to support it, they were quiet because they didn't want to lose their seats. So whether you support Thomas Massie or not is beside the point. The point is who really wins in all of this. The billionaire class, the Epstein class, or the people who rose up against it. And that's how I want you to look at it. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. I saw that too. I saw that, Karima. Many MAGA are asking for Obama to come back in 2028. I saw that. I saw it. It's a lot of things that are happening. Let's go to the super chats here, ladies and gents, and then we'll keep it moving and grooving. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat, for the super chat. Bobart supports genocide. She is no MTG. No, she's not. She's the weaker of the group. Well, her and Nancy. Nancy Mace supports genocide too. Leroy says what Trump is doing is what the squad was supposed to do. Thank you, Measured Man. Right. People were coming at me for supporting him on social media, and I was like, this isn't left or right. This is dark and light. We might not get this chance again. We have to come together. Thank you, Dublin. I agree. There should be rules, laws against this. I support Thomas Massey. Thank you, Kenman. If you get politics wrong, you get everything wrong. Thank you, Deep Green. Speaking of Russiagate, with AIPAC and Israel pouring in millions for this guy, isn't this what Rachel Maddow spewed about happening in real time? Foreign influence in elections? Where's she at? She's quiet because it's Israel. That's where Rachel be. That's where she is. Freeze says, you're correct. He cannot participate in any election activities. That's what I thought. And I don't know. We're going to have to share that on X or something because this is wild. Tao says, Ed the Fed has an OnlyFans account paid by campaign funds. Interesting. Thank you, Roger. Where's his fellow libertarian Paul? Awfully quiet. No, Rand Paul was there too. He's there too. I know. I don't think you're on X anymore, Roger, but yeah, there's videos of him as well. Thank you, Davu, Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Justice Republicans. That's funny. Thank you, Marlon. Secretary of Defense can't. The Secretary of War can make it up as he goes. Free college and free medical for America first. Interesting. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat, left mutual aid libertarians, and right libertarians. Kendra says, Mondami showed things can get done and help the people. Yeah. He's been showing a lot of that. Got people looking at their mayors like, where are you at? Thank you, Roger. MJT. I think you mean MTJ. Gates and Massey forming PAC, run indies in Congress. I want to see the same for state legislatures to flip non-CBI states to CBIA states. A stands for amendments. That would be great too. That would be great. Thank you, Marlon. Do they really need aid if they can dump $30 million to remove one politician? Can we get a total on this spending posted for prospective pre-election? I'm going to try to get another count on Tuesday to see how much it is then. Shout out to Justice by Karma, who's been a member for 8 months. Sab, do you think we can build a feasible third party as an America First party involving sensible, moderate right-wingers, progressive liberals, and leftists? I think that can happen, but I think that in the meantime, you need to get independents in Congress. It could take like 10 years to get all that ballot access. It takes time. And it's that way on purpose. Like they make it difficult on purpose. It takes time. But in the meantime, I think we need to try to get as many independents in Congress as possible. I really do. Thank you, Kenman. Tiffany is great, just not the singer. And thank you, Plug. We the people have been sold out. Yes, we have, Plug. Yes, we have. All right, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like button. And we're going to keep it moving and grooving. The tide is turning, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead to the next story. Doobie-doobie-doo. Yeah. Where are we here? We're on this one. Am I missing a story? Oh, yeah. Here we go. All right, there we go. Okay, let's get to the story here about this Sam Seder debate here with Ryan Grim. For those who may have forgotten, Ryan Grim was one of the people that said that he felt like Marjorie Taylor Greene did risk her career for supporting the Epstein files, for standing up to Trump, etc. And Sam Seder takes the opposite approach, where he felt as though she should have stayed there in Congress. And there's much to debate about with that. During this discussion, there was something that I did notice. It seems like to me there's a lot of gatekeeping. Like it seems like as though it almost kind of felt like this debate here with Sam and Ryan was being done so that Sam could try to, like, I guess, put Ryan Grim back in his place, like come back over to where you're supposed to be. Now, for those who may not be aware, Ryan Grimm is a part of Breaking Points. Breaking Points has 2 conservative hosts and 2 left-leaning hosts. And so they give both perspectives. That is something I want you to keep in mind as you listen to part of this debate. Because on the Sam Seder side of things, it's not that way, right? Like their hosts are left and left-leaning, progressive. They don't have that other voice in the room. And I think that is important. So let's go ahead and dive in here.
She didn't really sacrifice her political career. She took the only path that was available to her, which is, I'm going to leave. Maybe she'll come back someday. But she had nowhere else to go.
No, there's another path. The path is continuing to be in the House. Lots of people have tried to get Trump's endorsement to run statewide for something, not gotten it, and they keep it moving. Like she didn't have to go after him. No, you don't have to quit. She could.
She was pissed. She was spurned. I mean, look, she didn't have to do that, but we've seen her impulse control. We played the video of her peering through AOC's letter slot. Maybe drunk, maybe not. I'm not sure which is a better explanation. Sandy, like we have seen impulse control is not necessarily her thing. And I don't know,
by the way, I said separately that I fully understand why AOC personally has a grudge that she's not going to let up.
Oh, sure.
MTG has not apologized for that. MTG has targeted her personally, like creepily at her door, online constantly, on the floor, like acting like a weird bully. Like,
I'm not even talking about that. I'm actually, I want to stay on the, yes, I think she has every reason to personally be like, F this person. But if she meant what she was doing, if MTG's agenda, and look, I am happy to have her saying these things that I agree with, and I think they are marginally helpful. Okay. I'm not sure who her constituency is for this, but I do think they're marginally helpful in the same way that, the Washington Wizards are helpful to the Globetrotters. Like, it's good to have, our version of Alan, what was that guy's name on Combs?
Just Combs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have apostates, right? Like, I'm happy that Bill Kristol is, is out there, and Jen Rubin,
Megan,
and all of the all of those never Trumpers, and she is basically a never Trumper, except for she could have stayed in Congress for another year and had a material impact on votes.
So let's talk about this part right here. The fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene decided not to stay in Congress, and she decided to say, that's it, I'm out. There's a couple of things, and people feel differently about it. Let me know, in the chat, do you feel she should have tried to stay in Congress, or do you feel that she made the right decision? And the reason why I asked that question is because one of the things that she said is that her son was receiving death threats. That's one of the reasons why she decided to leave. And 2 was that she wasn't going to be able to get anything done in Congress. She mentioned that too. I would add to that, Donald Trump, that $30 million that was pumped in the race against Thomas Massie, Miriam Adelson would have pumped money in the race against Marjorie Taylor Greene too. Right. And I think she knows that. So then that question comes, would it have been worth it or not? People feel differently about this. I think she should have tried to stay. That's just my opinion. I remember when she announced that she was leaving, and I did this random live show, and I said Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving Congress. I think she should have tried to stay. But then there are those who felt like it would have been a waste of her time for her to stay, that she made the right decision by choosing to leave because she saw it was a sinking ship. And then to that, I kind of add, well, I get that too, but I also kind of feel as though that's a vote that's gone. Because let's say she would have stayed in Congress, and let's say she did win and they would have put up money against her, but she won anyway, then she would still be that other vote along with Thomas Massie. And now there's no chance of that happening, right? To the point that Sam made about being useful for certain issues and stuff like that. What I try to get across to people is that sometimes it's good for people to hear things from someone on their own side. I could stand up all day long and I'm in Massachusetts. I'm in the Boston area, Massachusetts. And for whatever reason, people think there aren't conservatives here. That's not true. It's a blue state, but there are still conservatives here. In fact, I worked with some of them, and I could sit up there all day long and try to say, this is wrong and this is right and da da da. But what I've learned over the years is that people, they tend to be more receptive to something when that message is coming from someone on their side. And so that's why when I see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, when they say, no, we should not be giving money to Israel, stop the wars, put American workers first, we should be investing in this country and not putting money to destroy other countries and kill people abroad. I feel like people are going to be more receptive to it if they're conservative and they're hearing it from someone else who is conservative, right? That's just been my experience. And so when people said, oh, why are they doing this? What's the hidden agenda? What's the da-da-da? I don't really give a shit. I don't care why they're doing it. I don't care what the hidden agenda is. I really don't give a damn. What I care about is that the message reaches different people. So let's get back into this debate here.
And she decided not to do that. And my question is how can you say that she sacrificed her political career to stand up against genocide, et cetera, when her career, I think in her mind, was over, at least that career play, stay in the House, do something, because I think she felt like she had to pivot. And the only way that she could do that, she could have done it in the House. She could have been voting with Massie. She could have been, co-sponsoring things with Ro Khanna. She could have been doing all of those things, but instead she just pulled a what's her face from Sarah Palin.
But to that point, good point here, Diane. I think she got tired of swimming around in the swamp. That's a good point. But to be fair to Sam, let's say she did stay in and she did do those things and still organize with Ro Khanna. Would you have even liked her then if she did that? Because my biggest thing is you still wouldn't have liked her. You still wouldn't have liked her because she's not on your team. Look, I've been doing this long enough to know that that's how a lot of this works. People, it's you don't even have to be great at what you do, but if you're on their team, they're going to like you, they're going to support you. So I feel as though even if she did do those things and she didn't declare herself to be a Democrat, I think you would still be against her. So I don't know.
She should have stayed in the House, and she would have earned more credibility if she'd have done that. And I think she loses credibility by leaving the House. I think that's true. She could have and should have stayed there. There's no question about that. You and I basically agree that it's marginally good that she's saying the things that she's saying.
Yes.
And the thing that I was responding to was AOC saying that MTG didn't have credibility on this issue.
She doesn't. I mean, she doesn't, but who cares?
She said it, so I responded to it.
Right.
You can not care. Apparently, a lot of people care. Days later, we're talking about it.
Yes. But no, well, I care more about the idea that she somehow sacrificed and that she
The other part that frustrated me in those comments was she said, when there are issues where there's bipartisan establishment support for something, then in those cases, and she said, for instance, banning stock trading, in those instances, I think it's appropriate to work with people we disagree with on other issues. So it's okay to do that for stock trading. What issue has stronger bipartisan establishment support than unapologetic support for Israel? So it's okay to do it for stock trading, but stopping a genocide?
That's a good point. Look, a lot of this I think is personal because Marjorie Taylor Greene and her and AOC used to go at it. And there were some words exchanged. So AOC used to say that she was attacked by Marjorie Taylor Greene a lot. verbally and stuff like that. Like we've seen some of the videos. I've shown some of those videos on the show before back in the day. So some of it's personal. Also, I do also think that some of it has to do with the Zionist lobbies. AOC doesn't take money from those entities, but I also think that AOC has her eyes set on running for president at some point. And I could tell by her using the phrase, she's anti-Semitic, like throwing that in there. It's kind of a wink and a nod. It's like, yeah, I'm not taking money from the pro-Israel lobby, but I see you. And so that's what I think part of this is too, because the Zionist entities in the halls of Congress, they looking at all these people that are thinking about having a political future somewhere down the road. It's interesting because Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar took the exact opposite position. Ilhan Omar said, I think we should welcome those individuals. Rashida Tlaib was just interviewed by CARE and was asked about this question. And Rashida Tlaib said, yeah, I think that we should say a similar thing. So it's always interesting to me. People keep wanting to push AOC and make her be what they want her to be. But especially when you look at the way that people vote, Rashida Tlaib votes the way that y'all want AOC to vote 99.9% of the time. But I don't see all that massive coalition and push behind her. Summer Lee, same thing. Some of the things that you guys complain about AOC not voting on, and we've vented about before on the show, if you look at the voting record, Summer Lee has made the correct vote on those issues. So like I said, when you know the history of this and how a lot of this started, and you understand that it was decided very early on that she would be the one, then you understand why people are heavily pushing her. When you already have people in there that are voting the way you want them to vote. Rashida Tlaib also voted the correct way on the railroad worker strike. So I don't know to tell you guys, but tricks are being played.
Well,
you can't go there.
Well, wait a second. What is Marjorie Taylor what are they going to do together? Like, she's out of Congress. She left Congress. She might as well be. She's just some gadfly. Like Alex Jones, I'm sure has agreed with something at one point. Should AOC like a congressperson join with Alex Jones?
So now there's this idea that you can't organize with someone because they're not in Congress anymore. You guys know the majority of organizing happens outside of electoral politics. The majority of organizing that takes place in the United States is not for electoral politics. It's for housing initiatives. It's for mutual aid. It's clothing drives. It's food drives. Like, I know I do mutual aid. The majority of organizing is not for electoral politics. But this is something that I've noticed too. It's like, it seems like with Sam Seder, it's like when he hears organizing, he can only think of electoral politics. At one point during the Biden administration, a lot of us, we were talking about the labor organizing and things that was happening. Chris Smalls has done a lot of organizing. He didn't do any of this in part of Congress or anything like that. But it's just this idea that things can only get done unless it's like in Congress. When we saw throughout the Biden administration, we saw multiple companies go on strike and start unions all throughout the United States.
That's a fair point too. She brought up MTG. Like, why? Like, what's the point of bringing her up to sideline her? Like, if there's nothing to work with her on.
I think in that context, she should not be paying attention to a former congressperson. But I imagine that's probably driven by her personal animosity.
Right.
And,
which again, I get.
Right. And this is what I was saying. Some of that is personal. Right. So even Sam is saying here that she probably shouldn't have been paying attention to it. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't even asked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She just brought that up. That was also the weird thing. I was like, what are you doing? Like, it didn't make no sense. And I got news for you guys. When you're trying to win a presidential election, guess what group you have to get to win? The independents. That's how Trump won. Yeah, he got more of the black vote, but honestly, look at the independents. That's how Biden won in 2020. more and more Americans are becoming registered independent. So you got to be willing to talk to everybody, including people that you think may not be on your team. The days are over of people just saying, I'm going to campaign in the districts and the areas where I know I'm pretty much going to do well. I mean, that's the reality. You're going to have to go into those areas, especially those swing states.
But I think the question was like, in what circumstances do you make a transpartisan thing? And I think like there is, I mean, let me put it this way. Do you think, just broadening out from it, do you think there are circumstances where there are people that it does not make sense to do, like, you know, go with God, Tucker Carlson. I'm glad that you are, but I also know I also know there was back in the early days of MSNBC, way back, when Pat Buchanan would fill in for Tucker on his show. Pat Buchanan would have me on because he knew I was the only Jew he could get that would criticize Israel. And I felt dirty as shit. But it was not like I had an audience that I was delivering to Pat Buchanan. I mean, that's also the question. I mean, this is the same question that like when Sirota asked Plattner about going on Tucker Carlson's show, and his assessment I thought was pretty, or his assessment of the calculation is pretty important. Like, who's helping who in this situation? Like, you know, are we helping? Are we really expanding who is hearing an anti-genocide message when we welcome Marjorie Taylor Greene into our home to talk about it? Or are we basically whitewashing Marjorie Taylor Greene, who still has a bunch of other odious policy sets, and also someone who like she gave up her material power?
I think because of the way that different media environments are structured, that you're much more likely to persuade some people in her base of your position than you are going to accidentally get a bunch of Majority Report viewers to all of a sudden start hearing MTG's other ideas and be like, oh, well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the way weather can be controlled. Like,
Ryan is correct. It's not the other way around. Like if Marjorie Taylor Greene came onto Majority Report, right? It's not like the majority, and a lot of the people that watch Majority Report, a lot of them are liberals. There's some progressives, but they ain't all progressives. A lot of them are liberals. It's not like all of a sudden everybody in Majority Report is going to say, oh, I'm going to go be over a Republican. It seems to be the other way around, right? Because the true left already had that position that Israel is an apartheid state, the true left, which is not the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party doesn't even believe that as a party. But when it comes to the Republican Party, this is the first time in my life where I've seen conservatives come over to the left position on Israel, or come over to the left position on economics. I guess you can call it populism. So Ryan is correct. It's not the other way around. So if Sam is afraid that his viewers are all of a sudden going to become like Republicans, that's not the case. That's usually not how this works. Ryan is on Breaking Points. Breaking Points is a perfect example of that. How many times have you watched Breaking Points and you've seen Sagar and Emily, who are conservative, agree with Ryan and Crystal on some of these left populist issues? I've seen that happen. Now, they don't agree on everything, but I don't see Crystal and Ryan going over to their side. This is the point that I'm trying to make. When you talk about things that impact people's wallets, when you're talking about economic populism, when you're talking about, we're spending all this money for war, but yet our bridges are falling apart. That's something that a lot of people can relate to, especially those of us that are not rich. A lot of people can relate to that, regardless if you're conservative or if you're left. So Ryan is actually right here. And it seems as if like Sam, I don't know if Sam's in a bubble. I don't know. I know he in New York. I live in New York. I know how New York City can be. But sometimes people have to get outside of their bubble. And I used to say this to some of my friends here also in Massachusetts. It's like when Donald Trump ran for office in 2016, I warned people then I warned my coworkers, I said, this guy could actually win. And they told me I was out of my mind because all of my coworkers at that point in time, they all grew up in Massachusetts. They never lived outside of Massachusetts. I've lived all over. I lived in red states. I lived in Georgia. I lived in South Carolina. I lived in North Carolina. I was trying to tell them some of the things I heard Trump saying in 2016 when he was running for president. I heard people say those things. I heard people use the same rhetoric that Donald Trump was using. And that's what I was trying to warn people about. I said, this guy is finding a way to appeal to certain people. And they were like, oh, but who would believe this that he's saying? And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes people have to get outside of their elite liberal bubbles. And you guys know what I'm talking about. This professional managerial class bubble, and it does exist. I live in Massachusetts. I know from experience. Sometimes you have to get out of that bubble and you have to go into places that you're not used to going into. And for those of us who have lived in red states and have been left in a red state, we know this. So it's just in Sam's mind, he can't fathom this. He's in New York City. So let me let Ryan finish here, and then I'm going to show you how bad faith summed something up really well about this that I think people need to hear.
I don't think that I think that they're mostly immune because it's a much more kind of open and they've gotten the vaccine, whereas like I think a lot of people in the right-wing media spaces are open to left-wing populist ideas, and if they start hearing them, can move over.
Let me give you a real-world example. MS Now, which made the pivot to having a lot of never Republicans on, never Trump on.
Right, but they're not serving anything up. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that. I mean, this is just an example, and it may not. When Trump in the first term bombed Syria, every single person on that network, and I know this because I was coincidentally supposed to be on to talk about something else, was advocating him bombing Syria and saying it shows that he's serious. And the reason is because they're all former Republicans or supposedly former Republicans. And, you know, anybody looking at Bill Kristol now, they don't remember, you know, or George W. Bush or whatnot. Like, there is something to be said about holding people's, real record. The overwhelming part of her record was, incidentally, in support of Israel. Marjorie Taylor Greene's. And yes, she did have a brief moment, at least in terms of her career as a congressperson, which she cut short, where she had a change of mind after every other avenue for her political ambition was shut down. But if she comes back into politics, I don't know that it works the way that you're talking about. I don't know that people are traveling with her. Her audience is traveling to the Majority Report when she's on the Majority Report, let's say.
So this is another common misconception. And I think that I'll give you an example. My dad watches everything because he wants to know what everybody's talking about. My dad used to watch Bill O'Reilly. My dad used to watch MSNBC, CNN. He would watch Don Lemon and he would watch Bill O'Reilly because he said he wants to see what everybody is saying. Right? And to my thing again, it's like, what is this? What is this really about? Now, I'm going to show you something here because bad faith. There was an interview really quickly on bad faith. Sana made a really good point, and I could not have said this better myself. This is what everybody needs to hear because she was talking about this exact same thing on Bad Faith Podcast with Brianna Joy Gray. Listen to what she said about this.
I also do want to say that this kind of constant, which is not new to this particular conversation, but just in general, is that we can't, and I agree, right? Is that we can't ally ourselves with white supremacists, white nationalists, etc. But it is absolutely fine and acceptable to ally ourselves with Zionists, right? That's completely fine. Even though Zionism is essentially, right, an auxiliary form of white supremacy. It is an ethno-nationalism, which we see in practice, not just in the state of Israel, but in the genocide, occupation, apartheid of Palestinians. That's okay to ally with. And so that's also this cognitive dissonance that I see with a lot of, self-described leftist media personalities, where it is okay for us to support and to ally ourselves with Zionists, as long as they're like nice, right? They're like slightly liberal maybe, but as soon as they're white nationalists, well, that's completely different. That's completely different, even though they're not different at all. They're both.
Go ahead, girl. You go ahead, girl. Does everybody get what she was saying? Zionism is supremacy. So you have no problem aligning yourself with Zionists. They're supremacists. They don't even want the Palestinian people there. Well, what are we doing? There's another part to this too. Again, I thought, guys, if you haven't seen this interview with Bree, this is a really good one. The second part, is it the same one? Or maybe it's the same one. I forget. There were two clips here. This part.
Point, right? It's like AOC finds it more morally reprehensible to align herself for one bill, which, by the way, she also ends up, right, throwing under the bus Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and I can't remember who also voted for that bill. I mean, also, like, they're never, ever part of these conversations. It's always going to be AOC versus everyone. But she finds that so incredibly morally reprehensible, but it's okay, and in fact commendable, for her to openly and proudly align herself with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who has so much blood, and that's not a matter of debate either. That's not like, no, there is no debate with regards to how much blood Joe Biden has on his hands. There is no debate that the single most powerful Zionist, by virtue of what he allowed to happen through his support to Israel, giving them a blank check to execute that genocide. There's no debate or question about that. And to me, what's been so frustrating about this conversation, we can talk about it some more, is that genocide, the extermination, the intentional extermination of a nation through various means, like so of the Palestinians, is being treated as just a policy that we can debate and discuss, and it's like a matter of degrees. And AOC should have maybe consider apologizing for that little stupid thing she said at the DNC. That little stupid thing that she said at the DNC carried more water for the genocide of the Palestinians than Marjorie Taylor Greene ever did.
We're going to drop the beat on this one because she's right. Joe Biden sat up there, and Joe Biden co-wrote the Prime Bill with the racist, white supremacist Strom Thurmond, who I'm very familiar with because I did live in South Carolina, got his name on a lot of buildings. Joe Biden sat up there and he stood on the Senate floor and he said, I don't give a damn what kind of environment they grew up in. I don't care where they came from. I don't care about any of those things, but had no problem aligning and allying with Joe Biden, crime bill segregationist Joe, who said he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racist jungle, had no problem aligning with Joe Biden, who is a staunch Zionist, who never asked Benjamin Netanyahu for a ceasefire, who applauded and approved the killing of the Palestinian people. So miss me with all of that. We are going to drop the beat for some. Drop the beat. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. Yeah. We haven't dropped the beat in a while, ladies and gents, and not just Joe Biden, but Tom Cotton as well. She had no problem working alongside Tom Cotton. The tide is turning. I was surprised when Ryan Grimm actually took the position that he took. And it just seemed like to me, like that was Sam Ceder's way of trying to get him back in line or something. I don't know what's going on over here. Like, of course, Ryan Grimm still supports AOC, and that has not changed. But the reality is, like, one of them viciously stood up against their administration, and the other one put out a tweet. AOC is not willing to go so far to risk her seat, which that's how it's been in the past couple of years. And the question I think that people should ask, if they still support like that strategy, ask yourself why people like Rashida Tlaib and Summer Lee, why aren't people getting all that energy around them when they're already voting the way that you want AOC to do? Think about that. All right, ladies and gents, we have one more story for you. Dun, dun, dun. One more story. If you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you very much. And we're going to keep it moving and grooving. Let's get to this Charlie Kirk story, which is wild. Look, I don't know why Turning Point USA thought this was a good idea. But for whatever reason, they decided to speak to the Daily Mail about this alleged video that they have. We're going to get into all of this, where they are saying that Charlie Kirk promised or wanted Erica Kirk to be the CEO of Turning Point USA if anything should have happened to him. Now, that's not the big picture. This is part of the story, but that's not the big picture. The big picture is that something is afoot. Like, these people, they are going to do like tremendous lengths here to try to like absolve Erica, I guess. And in doing so, it just makes them look more guilty. Like, that's the part, it's like when OJ wrote, "If I Did It." It's things like that. Like, they could have just like sat back and just chilled or whatever, but they had to take it there. So Candace is talking about that audio. We're going to get into the audio here, and then I'm going to show you this bombshell from the Daily Mail. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. How far they are willing to go. Let's get into this part here.
Like I said, apparently it was Project Constitution who sourced this rumor, and they were happy to respond to it, which means that they do not view him as a psychopathic, knife-wielding subway killer. So they responded, right? Because it has been, according to our count, and I'm keeping the count here on our desk, 39 long days since we reported that donors who were present in Aspen assert that the audio, which was shared by Turning Point USA, of Charlie saying, "I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA. If something happens to me, she'll do a great job," was faked. This is what they are saying. I'm reporting that. They are saying that was faked. It never happened. Charlie never said that. And Turning Point, for some reason, is refusing to drop the video of that moment saying this, of Charlie saying this. They're also refusing to even respond authoritatively. They could simply respond and assert that it absolutely was not faked and that the donors are lying. Their donors are lying. Big donors are lying. That feels a little bit suspicious to me. In fact, Blake has specifically expressed concern, you will recall, that if they do drop it, people will say it's AI. Wow, that's an oddly specific concern that you have about dropping this video. And I got to tell you, the more I listen to it, the more AI it sounds to me. Take a listen.
A lot of organizations and groups, as soon as a founder leaves, it just kind of collapses. A lot of my job is not always in the day-to-day details. It's very much vision casting, very much driving success. But we have a great board, and God forbid if something happens, they'll figure it out. I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA if something happens to me. Erica would do a great job. I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA if something happens to me. Erica would do a great job. I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA if something happens to me. Erica would do a great job.
It doesn't sound real to me, guys. Look, I don't care which side you're on about this at this point in time, but it doesn't sound real to me. And the question is, the problem is, because AI is pretty much getting pretty rampant, and there's a lot of AI videos I've seen like on social media, It's getting to the point where it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't. And that's the dangerous part. But that sounds like AI. And it's just, you know.
It just doesn't flow when you hear it. And it's also remarkably formal. I appoint my wife. If anything should happen to me, it's like exactly the sentence that he needed to say, he said. Not just like, oh, Erica can do it. Yeah, I mean, she'd be great at that, whatever. Hopefully we don't have to think about that question until down the line. But I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA in the event that anything happens to me. We would like a response on this. Are the donors lying? It's a possibility that for some reason the donors are conspiring to lie about this moment. A simple yes or no would do as a starting place, right? I think that would do just as a starting place. Yes.
One would assume that something like that would have been written or planned, right? Like rather in one's will, or if not a will, that would have been in writing somewhere in some place, shape, or form. Not just this audio. One would have imagined that if a secession plan was in place, that would have been written down somewhere in some shape or form.
Yes, they are lying. No, they are not lying. And the video, which I would like to point out, Turning Point USA mentioned this video to us. Erica herself told Megyn Kelly an emotional story about what she felt like watching that video for the first time. The video of Charlie choosing her, violating suddenly his every public statement and sentiment that he had ever expressed in the past about women working, complete 180 from his prior positions. Please just drop the video. It's all we ask. And we're asking politely, by the way. And now we've learned even more interesting information because it turns out we can now definitively state that Turning Point does use AI voices for their presentations. You will recall in Aspen, Charlie was presenting to donors. And it turns out that Marcus Wada, we introduced you this guy. This is the Turning Point employee that's a rehabilitated former arms dealer. Okay, a former arms dealer who now works for Turning Point. This is a thing. A lot of them become pastors. They find God and they find Turning Point like at almost the same time. And Marcus Wada, one of the things that he offers is that he is able to create these AI voices for them to use for their presentations. So AI technology is what they currently use to voice over their Turning Point presentations. And typically, I am told they use the voice of Pastor John Amanchukwu. So if you're at a Turning Point event and you're hearing a presentation and you hear a guy speaking over, you're actually hearing Pastor John is not actually recording that. They're manipulating his voice, I'm sure with his permission, to speak over in the presentations. They basically take someone's voice and turn it into a narrator. And that is, by the way, unique.
So here's the problem, guys. Let me show you what happened with this article from the Daily Mail, because this is weird. Okay. So at some point, Turning Point USA decided to involve the Daily Mail. So this was published this weekend. It says, bombshell, secret video of Charlie Kirk naming his true Turning Point successor days before the assassination. So the first thing I want to go ahead and tell you is that video isn't anywhere in this article. Okay. So I can go ahead and save you, I don't know, some reading there. It's nowhere in this article. But this is what they're saying here. About 200 TPUSA donors shifted nervously in their seats at an exclusive retreat in Aspen, Colorado. Yada, yada. Kind of hard question to ask, but I think it's probably important to everybody in this room. And I'm wondering about Turning Point succession plan should, God forbid, something happen to you. What a great question. This goes into that audio that you just heard there, right? Kirk was hosting a Q&A session at the Triumphant Gathering. They were in part celebrating Turning Point's role in helping elect Donald Trump and making plans to found a new group chapters in American high schools. Now, several people in the room thought the question seemed like a distraction, but Kirk took the time to answer it. Some of America's great founder-led organizations, he observed, have collapsed after their original leader left. Blah, blah, blah. We went through all of that. So it goes into the part where he allegedly says that he wants his wife to be the successor there. So let's get to this part right here, right about here. Erica first revealed the details of Kirk's remarks during an interview with podcaster Megyn Kelly in late November. Audio was also played as part of a montage introducing Erica wearing a glittering pantsuit. That has not been enough for Erica's detractors, including former Turning Point communications director turned media personality Candace Owens, who alleged that the video may be fake or even part of a scheme by outside forces to seize control of Turning Point. For several weeks, Owens has led a crusade demanding the public release of the video. And we just talked about what she said there on the podcast as well. Erica, Owens continued, would be a confirmed ruthless psychopath if she had a hand in faking her husband's voice to strengthen her case for taking control of Turning Point if the audio is bogus. We would be looking at a psychological profile of people that I would suggest are very much capable of a cold-blooded murder. Owens has also claimed to have spoken to 3 donors allegedly present at the event who allegedly told her that they did not recall Kirk's remarks about appointing Erica to succeed him. So let me go ahead and interject here for just a second. And let me say this. Look, I don't think they actually have a video. I don't know. It's kind of sound like one of those things that someone would do if they're like in high school, like, I got a video of it. I don't think they actually have it on video. I think they were saying that to make their point stronger. I don't know whether he said that or not. I really think that's beside the point, right? I think here's the bigger picture. Somebody from Turning Point USA went to the Daily Mail to cover the story. They reached out to somebody and they covered the story. It was just a couple weeks ago that there was the White House Correspondents' Dinner that Erica Kirk was at. And remember, there was that, alleged shooting. And then Erica walked off crying and said she wanted to go home. And then that one clip there of her walking away was suddenly just elevated on social media by all these different accounts. It was almost as if they all did it as a tweet storm all at once. It was later revealed that allegedly that there was some type of push for that there was some type of document telling people to amplify that, to amplify Erica walking away, crying, saying that she wanted to go home, that somehow they were going to try to make what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner about Erica. So Candace had revealed that on her show as well. That this correspondence that apparently went out and said, let's elevate this, let's use this. Erica said, when she was wearing the Rhythm Nation outfit, Erica said also that she was there at that dinner because she wanted to confront the journalists. She wanted to speak to the people, the members of the press who had been speaking about her. And now you got this article from the Daily Mail. Let's go on a little bit more here. A Daily Mail request to Owens to speak to the donors she was referring to was not returned. Several individuals who were inside Aspen event told the Daily Mail that they heard Kirk say that Erica should be his successor and immediately thought of those remarks after Erica's appointment as CEO. So again, it says individuals told the Daily Mail. Recounting that conversation, the patron says she had raised concerns about the rise of democratic socialists like Zoran Mandami in New York City. While Kirk conceded that Mandami was going to win, he stressed that he was more concerned about figures such as the alleged assassin of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, Luigi Mangione. Kirk warned that Mangione had become a folk hero among the left and would only inspire more violence. you're going to see more high-profile assassinations, Kirk predicted. And apparently, shortly after this meeting, he was killed. How convenient. It was not the first time that Kirk had comprehended his mortality. This is coming from Turning Point USA board member Mike Miller, who told the Daily Mail. So again, they reached out to the Daily Mail. And they're going to talking about like the death threats that Charlie Kirk had. So you guys can see this here. Remember this video? I just want to go find. And this became about her. So a lot of the press became about her from that evening. And there are a lot of people that were there, journalists, etc. But it became about Erica. During those discussions, they made it clear that if anything should happen to Kirk, his wife would be responsible for the organization that they have founded. Okay, so my thing is, again, even if that is the case, whether she was to be the successor, fine, cool. It is what it is. What I find to be interesting is that the woman just told you that she was there to confront the journalists at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, to confront them about the things that they were saying about her. And here comes this article from the Daily Mail not too long after that about the donors, and they talked to people at Turning Point USA. I don't even really know who Erica Kirk is. And it's besides the point at this moment. We've seen Erica in so many different ways. I don't know. But one thing seems to be for certain is that Turning Point USA has corporate media on their side. You get me? That's the big picture here. The big picture is not whether or not Charlie Kirk said, okay, it's going to be you. The big picture is that they have corporate media on their side. And remember how Donald Trump backed Larry Ellison to go ahead and take in and buy up corporate media to do his bidding. And Turning Point USA does the bidding of Donald Trump. Very much attached to the media. On top of that, as much as you continue to hear, Turning Point USA said, this is what Charlie Kirk would have wanted. And I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk. Disagree with a lot of things that Charlie Kirk said. But one thing is for certain, Charlie Kirk made it very clear about who he supported and who he didn't support. And you know what I just found out? Turning Point USA is not supporting or endorsing Thomas Massie. They're following the money and doing what Donald Trump wants them to do. And I'm just going to take you back to when Charlie Kirk was talking to Thomas Massie, someone who he said he admired a lot and was one of his favorite members of Congress.
We have Congressman Thomas Massie. Congressman, this might sound like a strange question, but I know it's on everybody's mind. You're going to be on the committee that will oversee the most powerful institutions on the planet, the FBI, the CIA, maybe the IRS. Are you concerned for your own safety and or what they might try to do to blackmail you? We know the intel agencies have files on every lawmaker that might become disagreeable. This is not some sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I'm sure this has crossed your thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. By the way, you're not qualified to be on this committee if you don't realize that there will be an effort to discredit me.
Does everybody hear what they're talking about? Everybody hear what they're talking about? The deep state, these intelligence agencies, you hear what they're talking about? Fast forward, Charlie Kirk is dead, and Thomas Massie has Ed the Fed and Mariam Adelson and all this other big donor money trying to get him to lose his seat. Let me finish.
But you know what?
of all the people that they try to discredit, I married my high school sweetheart. I don't have an interesting romantic past. We grow our own food. We make our own power. At the end of the day, what are they going to do to me? I'll just go back to my farm and live out my days if they are in any way successful in ruining me. But
does everybody hear this conversation? Does anybody remember what year this was? If you're watching and you remember what year this was, please let people know in the chat. That's what I couldn't find. I didn't find the date, the exact date for it. But we know it was further back because this is bearded Thomas Massie. This is Thomas Massie before the beard. And that kind of helps us with the timeline a little bit. Somebody said it already, I think. 2023. Okay. I got 2023. Anybody else? 2023. Okay, let me finish.
This is so important, it's worth it. If I can't do it, who can? If I can't break through this, who can? And that's why I've been here 10 years. It's easy to get jaded. I'm redoubling my efforts. I'm excited to come to work and work on this every day. And I think that's what's going to take. It's going to take a dogged perseverance and just sort of ignoring the detractors. The left is saying this is a tinfoil hat committee. This is MAGA conspiracy committee. But it is no conspiracy to know what has gone on. We've seen things that have come out. We've got facts about what has gone on. And I know we're going to be bumping up not just against the FBI, but the other three-letter agencies and probably three-letter agencies in other countries.
Hold up. What did he say you were going to be bumping up against? Did everybody hear what he just said? We're going to be bumping up against the FBI and other three-letter agencies. Didn't he end up bumping up against the FBI? Kash Patel? Epstein files? Turning Point USA is not endorsing and supporting Thomas Massie, someone who Charlie Kirk liked and admired a lot. So as much as they continue to tell you that that's what Charlie Kirk would have wanted, if you notice, no. Turning Point USA is doing what the donor class wants them to do. Even if that means pushing that fake audio, whatever the fuck that was. That's what they're doing right now. It's not just Erica. And I know we've talked about the Erica stuff, but it's not just Erica. They are doing what the donors want them to do. That includes Andrew Colvin and the peanut head-shaped guy next to him. That's all this really is. It's not about right and wrong for them. It's about what the donors tell them to do. That's what they're doing because that's who's giving them the money. You know, it's weird sometimes when you go back and you look at like some of these older videos and you're like, there was a video recently that I saw on Kim Iverson's channel. I think you guys should check it out. This gentleman believes that Charlie Kirk wasn't even hit with the bullet, that it was a electronic device that exploded, possibly his microphone. I don't remember all the details of that conversation, but what he said actually made more sense than what Kash Patel told you. It was planned. And if they do it to him, they can do it to anybody else. Anybody else that they feel is going to be a problem. This isn't necessarily about whether or not he wanted Erica to have that spot. This is about what the donors want. And if the donors decide that he's no longer good for their investment, they'll pick whoever they think is going to be good for their investment and put them in that spot. That's how it works, folks. Here today, gone tomorrow. Actually, this happens a lot. If you pay attention to like business news or finance news, Money Watch, Market Watch. If you pay attention to that, it happens a lot. CEO today, CEO, someone else in that position tomorrow. Because a lot of it is profit driven. And it's all about like, if somebody invests, gives you a $1 million donation, that's not just for shits and giggles. They want something in return. Charlie Kirk was against going to war with Iran. We know that he spoke about that publicly on his own show and apparently went to Donald Trump and opposed that. Charlie Kirk is killed, and what do you know? We go to war with Iran. Something to think about. But that is it for me tonight, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great Sunday, fun day, and all that jazz. And something I just want you guys to remember, and I'll get the rest of the super chats. Just remember that the tide is turning. Some things are changing. And I'm not saying you got to go be besties with someone that you're like, oh, I don't want to be, yeah, some people, they're doing some things that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Then don't put yourself in that position. I'm not saying you got to go be besties with mofos. I'm not saying you got to go be Thomas Massey's friend. All I'm saying is this. It's the Epstein class or everybody else. And I think most people that are watching don't want Ed the Fed. They may not be buddy with Thomas Massey, but they also don't want Ed the Fed. And there's no left candidate in this race. So I just think at one point, and Roger, you hit it on no more parties. Thank you, Roger. We need a U.S. amount abolish in their existence. This will only happen if we elect more indies to state legislatures. This is why I'm telling you guys, we need more independent candidates, because it's just Bernie Sanders is going to retire soon. He's already put out a statement that he's setting up the next crop of little Bernies. So he's going to retire soon. So there goes one of the independents out of the Senate. You see what I'm saying? So we need more independence. Thank you, Kevin. Sadly, going after loved ones hurt MTG's resolve. Realist says MTG had to leave even after she got death threats. The sitting president mocked her, so she did what was best for her family and safety. It's a good point, too. Thank you, Laugh. Ryan Grimm is a sheep herder for the establishment Dems. Seder is more Zionist. Grimm and Drop Site are drawing you in only to manipulate you later. Interesting. I don't think Sam Seder is a Zionist, but thank you for that. Thank you, Sean. Get indie candidates into local government and Congress. Yes. Thank you, Marlon. Kind of hated the House MTG, but have love for the rebel MTG. She feels more real now. Thank you, Jay. BB girl in my fake street AOC voice. Thank you, Goba. Shows like Majority Report, TYT, and Democracy Now! Seem to have strong corporate funding to support the DNC. That's why they will never show the total rot in our domestic and foreign policy. That is interesting. Thank you, Kevin. Longtime buddy, and I got into it. He bought Media Hillary's inevitability. 3 weeks before the election, I said Trump had a good chance. He said I'd eat my words. Yeah, I know a lot of people were surprised. Thank you, Imrish. Sabby, this is why we love you. Oh, thank you. I just realized my little thing fell down and I was using that to hide the sun because during this time of day, the sun comes through and I think my little cloth fell down. Oh, well. Thank you, user. Israel and Nazi Germany is an extension of the USA. Look how none of them are talking about how many Union states went full terrorist and white power. Interesting. Thank you, Kevin. Erica equals female Trump. It's about her. And thank you, Marlon. Erica's about as real as an attempt on Trump. You guys see things around here. That's it for me, guys. Save the date for the mutual aid workshop this month. It's Saturday, May 30th. Mark your calendars, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll share the graphic Tuesday night's live stream, and I'll start sending it out via my newsletter, my Substack as well. But the tide is turning, folks, and all I'm asking you to do is let's just pay attention to it. Okay? Okay. All right. That is it for me, ladies and gents. Have a great Sunday evening. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.